We would like to, but we really want to make sure it gets the tape. It's doing a really good job.
Oh, it is.
Or somebody call it magic grass. Somebody call it magic grass.
Grass.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sure. Do you want to ask for one? Okay. Sure. Sure.
Yeah, right?
What's that?
He said when he said I had the magic grass.
Oh, it's popular?
Yes.
We're going to go ahead and get started first. All right, it is September 10th, 2018 at 6:59 p.m. Thanks everybody for coming to our regular scheduled meeting for the City of Idaho Springs. I need a roll call, please.
Michael Hillman.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Tracy Stokes. Here. Bob Baldwin.
Here.
Mike Buick.
Here.
Joe Curtis.
Here.
Jason Siegel.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda in front of us. We are going to have to amend it. Our ordinance number 7 for our second reading needs to be replaced. The title is now an ordinance accepting and recognizing the realignment of portion of Soda Creek Road. Basically, this is only the word Soda Creek. Don't quite understand that.
Just the title.
Just the,
If you look at the agenda.
so from its approximate intersection, when you take all that out.
Yes.
So after Soda Creek, if you look at ordinance number 7, we'll just stop it at Soda Creek. Approximate intersection with Minor Street, eastern city limits, and we'll talk about something else down under mayor and council later. So, okay, I've got the amendment. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the agenda for the September 10th, 2018 meeting as amended.
Do I have a second? Discussion?
I think the chief wanted to add.
This?
Yes.
We'll just put that on. Yeah, you can just under your report. It's no big deal.
We're adding it to the agenda.
Okay, I didn't read it all the way. Okay, then we need to add an action item under the chief's report.
Thanks, Diane.
Again, as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second amendment.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on. Does anybody on council feel they have a conflict of interest tonight? All right, hearing none, we'll move to the approval of the minutes. Everybody read them? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the regular meeting minutes from August 27th, 2018.
And do I have a second? Second. Discussion?
Do we have a work session scheduled yet for that, the discussion on the winter coats?
No, Andy and I actually talked about that today, but we haven't heard back from her.
Oh, okay.
Right, for the, so, did we hear back something? Cool, we'll have a work session on it.
Sounds good.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none? We'll move to the bills and salaries. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve bills through September 10th, 2018, and that's it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion.
Any questions?
Page 4.
That they changed venues.
Great, thank you.
I had a question on page 9. It looks like police department, the last item, or the last section, red curb paint.
Across from the fire station, we felt that was appropriate because we enforce it.
Okay.
There's 10 parking places that we
Right.
for the staff over there and responders.
So that wouldn't be out of the Colorado Boulevard Fund, that would just be out of,
It could be, what was the cost on that?
$112.
Yeah.
$112, we could probably pay that back out of Colorado Boulevard if we wanted to.
I was just curious, I didn't know if that was, you know, part of the design aspect of it.
Because when the ladder truck comes out, they have to.
Right, they have to have that turn, the radius, okay, that makes sense.
All right, does anybody have any other questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Stefan Now,
Yes.
Tracy Stokes,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
Mike Buick,
Yes.
John Curtis, Jason Siegel.
Yes.
Andy, do I have any unscheduled public comment?
No.
No? All right. Planning Community Development, Alan,
Get this
got
started.
it going?
I'm just trying to get the projector going.
Yeah.
Good evening, council people. There.
Good evening.
Let me just get this thing rolling. Take a second. Probably should not have turned it off. Something like that. I guess that while I'm waiting for this to warm up, the first thing I want to bring to your attention is that you may be aware of this upcoming Urban Land Use Institute Technical Advisory Panel. If you don't know a little bit of the background, the Urban Land Use Institute, which is a national organization of people involved in planning and development and land use, they do something called a Technical Advisory Panel, nationwide. And it's basically a team of experts that come in and they take on a particular problem or a particular challenge for the city, and they do it at very low cost. So this was something that has been discussed quite a bit over the last few months, and it was actually paid for through the economic development, some of the property, some of the business owners, Dr. Cog, and I don't think we had to pay any money. If I
No, the
correctly.
city did not put it in many places.
So you can't go wrong on that one. So that is scheduled for October the. My apologies. Sure that we have that correct. The panel is that they're going to interview different stakeholders, and they are going to bring in some business owners and the decision makers and sort of bring a dialogue in regard to that. So I want to let you know about when we are proposing to actually have the city council participate in this. One of the things I need to do is make sure that the planning commission and the city council can attend these windows before I send out invitations to all the other stakeholders. There's actually about 70 different stakeholders that we're sending invitations to that are going to be interviewed. So one of the first things that's going to happen is staff and the city council is going to meet with this panel. They have scheduled you for the 22nd, that would be at 10:45 to 11:05 a.m.
22nd of October.
Yes, sir. If you'd like, you will expect to get a formal invite from me with a little bit of it, but I just kind of wanted to bring that up right.
What was that time again?
It would be the 22nd from 2:45 to 11 a.m. And it's going to be in the Majestic building on the second floor. So what's going to happen is that there'll be sort of a briefing in the Majestic building, and will happen. And this will go on for the whole day on the 22nd. Then on the 23rd, staff and the ULI panel will be meeting, and there'll be a discussion, and then there will be a presentation same day on the 23rd here at the City Hall. So, and again, all that information will come in your packet. I just wanted to basically preliminary make sure that there wasn't any glaring conflicts with the council. You don't all have to come. You're all welcome to come. You should all expect to get an invite, but again, I just wanted to make sure nobody had any glaring issues on that particular day.
I'm good.
And I'd like to add something. Usually this TAP and this ULI does land use stuff, but they wanted to propose this to us right after Alan finished the comp plan, and it didn't make a lot of sense for them. This is going to be about a citywide parking management program.
I apologize. I just realized I did a terrible job of describing what the actual intent of this was. Thank you.
Oh, that's your bad man.
Thank you for clarifying that. So yeah, where we started out with was there was this talk about the highest and best use type thing again, and what the best sites were. And there was a lot of discussions about what we basically already did with the comprehensive plan. I pointed out that we've already had 22 studies, at least 22 studies. And part of the comprehensive plan was to pull all those studies into one document, try to pull out all the highlights so that we had all the information rather than a bunch of plans that just sit on desks. So that's where we're at. I spent a lot of time working with the ULI trying to get the scope narrowed down. So they're going to be looking at, so it's not really so much a parking management plan. They're going to be they actually have their lists. They're going to be looking at how can the parking sites that we have right now in the city be maximized. How can those interact with commercial development? How do we attract the right kind of development into Idaho Springs? And what kind of financing mechanisms could we use to look at for parking strategies? So whether it's a parking garage or parking meters or parking decals, it's going to be significantly focused on parking, but it's not going to specifically be a parking management plan. But it will address a lot of our parking issues in regard to development. So my hope is, after spending a lot of time with them, that we can get something tangible that we can actually use and not have another, well, this would be great if type study.
Yeah, I understand we're an unusual.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
They have many leather-bound books.
It's the biggest.
You don't have to be there. I'll send you out an invite, and if you'd like to come, you can RSVP me, and I'll add it to the list.
Will there be supporting materials available for us to review online or receive in terms of PDFs if we're not able to make the presentation?
Now, so the materials going in is something called the advanced packet, which actually I've had to put together. And he's laughing because it ended up being a lot more work than it was actually told to be. It's about 30 pages.
Okay.
I summarized everything having to do with parking and everything that we've done in the last few years. You can see that if you'd like. So that's our advanced packet. It's a lot of maps looking at parking, development sites, and what all of the significant points of interest are in the city, all stuff that I did on the GIS. So I certainly will send that. That's what and then there's like 20 different large action plan, all of our parking plans, our parking policies and all that. So that's what the advanced packet is. I can send that to you ahead of time. That's what the panel will be looking at when they do this. And then when they're done, they'll be giving us some kind of material, which I'm not sure what it is going to be yet, with recommendations of what we can do with parking being one of the major priorities of this study.
Thank you.
This is kind of just an FYI. Are we good with this? Okay, so one of the items on your agenda tonight is about this vacation of right-of-way, and I think this is pretty much a no-brainer, of course. So hopefully you can see this. So what happened was the city is having to do a land swap with the bank across the street. So hopefully you can see this well enough. This is the city hall right here. And the Clear Creek Greenway, as you probably know, will come up the creek, it will cross over, and then it will run right in front of City Hall over here, and then right past the bank. I'm sorry, I was wrong. This is the bank, and we're over here. So the Clear Creek Greenway is going to come up, it's going to cross right in front of this bank, and then it's going to cross over to Colorado. In order to do this, we had to do a land swap with this bank. So this little piece of property right here is presently Colorado Boulevard right-of-way, and it's already been developed, and they're now using it as parking. And this little piece here is what the bank was using as parking, and they're giving this to us so that we can create the greenway there. So basically, this is a request for a vacation of right-of-way, so we're vacating this piece of Colorado Boulevard to them. And what you're seeing here is the administrative plat. So if that vacation of right-of-way were to pass through you tonight, council, what you're seeing here would be.
So were they not already using that area for parking prior to the Colorado University parking lot?
I don't recall them using it. They might have been using it on-street parking, but not at the extent that they have now. I mean, it's really been developed.
It's been formalized. I think there was a ditch there.
Yeah.
It
wasn't
so you're talking about
like
street parking, not...
No, they have a parking lot.
Yeah. I don't explain it. So it's on the south side of the road.
It's on the south side of Colorado. So it's actually formal.
No,
sorry, but, yeah, right.
This is
right.
actually on there.
But
I think
there
it's
was
essentially-
already a parking,
Before I got here, so I don't remember what
I
it
mean,
looked
the
like.
parking lot would never change.
I
It-
think- No,
all
I
it did
think
was
the
pour a new
result of
sidewalk.
this is the bank is gonna lose.
Side of the building that was parking on
Right.
the north side of the building.
If they were parking on the north side, then they were parking in the right of way.
Yeah.
So,
why-
so it could be that we're formalizing it and actually giving them the green light.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Exactly right.
Well, I mean, what you're saying makes sense. It just doesn't add up from what I've seen. It was a very, very well designated parking area already.
You're talking about on that side of the bank on Colorado Boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now there's a big sidewalk behind it instead of
Yeah,
just ditch.
they were probably using it as informal parking.
Who was
I mean, it was, there was
The
parking.
argument I could give you is we've been using Soda Creek Road as a right of way for
Right.
Oh, yeah.
30 years, and we ended up that we never even had any right of way
Right.
across it. So it's probably the same kind of situation where they had an informal parking lot. We never did the survey to know exactly where the property lines
Okay.
were. We come in, we construct Colorado Boulevard, we do all the survey, we go, oops, that's city property, and we work with them now to give that to them so that they'll get.
Greenway Trail will turn the parking around. So instead of facing towards the bank now, they will turn towards Colorado Boulevard. And the entrance to the bank will change a little bit
I
with
see.
the building of the Greenway
Okay.
Trail.
Questions? Any more questions? Everybody clear? I don't want to confuse anybody. Okay.
Is there gonna be cost involved with the changing of that entrance, or?
Yeah, it'll be part of the Greenway Trail.
Okay.
Okay, before I get started on the last part, I just want a quick update so you know what's coming. So, hope fall into logical sections, just so you know that it's been posted on the website. So, the Planning Commission and I have been going through this. I think we've had 8 meetings to talk about it. So, we've done a lot of working together to get it to where it is now. It's now ready for your review, and whenever, however much you want to go through work sessions and whether or not you want to schedule for hearing, that's where we're at right now. I'm going to bring the entire thing. The Planning Commission has seen it in sections. I've put the whole thing together, and then in October, I'm bringing that back to the Planning Commission, hoping that they're ready to make a formal recommendation to you. I'm pretty sure they are because we've already done all that work. Hopefully there's no surprises. But again, just so you know, they'll coming, and I'll give you a much better overview of sort of some of the highlights of it next week. But as hopefully speaks sort of for Diane is, if you've ever tried to work with the sign code, it's difficult at best, maybe. There's a lot of duplication, there's a lot of conflicts, it's not real clear, there's a lot of things that are sort of left to mind. You have to kind of interpret a lot of different things. So, the significant changes at all to the content. Today were some of the little tweaks where I deleted stuff, maybe it was duplicative, or there was a few little tweaks. If I were to red mark for you all of the rearrangements and the organizations that happened, the entire thing would have been colored, which is why I didn't do it. And you're proposing to do a really cool Route 66 type Americana sign. You're going to refurbish. You don't really have any options. It talks about variances, but you can't go far so good. So this sign plan, what this does is it allows you to propose some kind of deviations to the code, and it goes through the decision makers with the expectation that whatever that result is would be better than what the sign code would allow you to do under the straight code. That's really the only difference in this sign code, other than the entire thing has been disassembled and put back together.
So you just created a little bit of flexibility.
I'm sort of a fan of something that's better than what those zoning regs require, and you can't do it, then you have the option of coming to the city council and saying, I have a better idea, and this is why it's a benefit to the city. The
Right.
city council has the option of approving that.
So
I
if
think
you,
there should
so
always
if
be
you
a
want a
right.
sign that might be outside of the legal limit, but you feel like it's going to benefit the community in some way, that's the kind of thing that you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
It's
So let's say,
simply
again, some cool Route 66 sign that's maybe bigger than what it was, or they want to refurbish one and they can't do it because it's a non-conforming sign. So they come in here and they have the option to propose to you, hey, if you'll let me do this kind of sign, I'll have a sign with little cowboys sitting under the cap kind of place.
Yeah.
That's Americana. That's sort of what the East End was at one time. It's sort of changed over time, but the comprehensive plan sort of it envisions that kind of development to be encouraged in that area. So this is one of the first steps in doing that.
Yeah, no, miles considered judgment is what it does.
Right. I'm all, the way of going to the decision makers and saying, this is why I can't meet them, and this is why what you're seeing is better than what I could do by the regulations. Part of the problem that I've had working with our existing code is, for instance, let's talk about parking or building height. There was absolutely no flexibility at all. So if you wanted, let's say, other than going through a variance, and to go through a variance, you have to prove that there's a hardship that wasn't self-created that deprives you of reasonable use of the property. And you can almost never do that. Same kind of thing with the sign code. So a lot of what our new regulations are, they will have these requirements.
Yeah, it's 115 feet actually.
Right, so it's a little more than 35
A
feet.
little more than 35, yeah.
Questions? Put that back together again. That it?
Anybody have any questions for Alan before we go into our public meeting?
Hopefully I explained that well. Didn't
Public
confuse
hearing.
anybody?
Okay. All right, at this time, we will be coming out of our regular meeting and entering into a public hearing. This hearing will come to order. This is a public hearing for the City Council of the City of Idaho Springs on ordinance number 8, series 2018. An ordinance adopting an amended chapter 20 of the Idaho Springs Municipal Code concerning signs by reference. This hearing will be as follows: staff introduction and testimony, public testimony sworn by the city clerk. This hearing is now declared open. It is 7:25. Do we have anybody in the public who would like to come up and make comments, or
We'll have to ask the audience, I forgot to do,
you forgot to do what?
the sign up sheet.
Does anybody want to make comments tonight?
If Miss Candace Lugo, resident,
Well, let's, come up, you'll have to come up.
this
so
is
you're
a
on
very
record.
slight comment.
You're making a slight comment.
Candace Lugo, just a resident and business owner. The only thing that I saw in the new sign code that I did not notice before was the 10-foot setback. I don't know if that was in the open or not.
It was, there was a 10-foot setback.
It was inferred. A sign is considered a structure, and structures have to meet the setbacks, but it wasn't clear in the sign code that you had to meet the setbacks. If the sign was higher than 3 feet, then we would have made you meet the setbacks.
And as Alan said, it's considered a structure, and that's where you would find that 10-foot setback.
Okay, well, I just,
Are in that are grandfathered in, how many do we have that are?
I don't think I could give you a number, council person. The way that works, I think if it's under, I have to go back and look. I think if it's under 3 feet, then you have
Consider it
no
ground
setback.
sign,
And
right?
if it's
Consider
over,
it ground
the way
sign.
it is now, if it's under 3 feet, you can be out higher than your car. You can't so much because it's not real clear what the requirements are in the code, and figure out what that sign was. And if you look at what our definition is for a structure, a sign meets that. So we may, or in the past, we may or may not have done that. But with me here,
It was kind of chopped up into a couple
it
different
was
sections.
yeah.
And this makes it more clear.
And then
Having to try to figure stuff out and making it.
could easily comprehend what's being explained.
We've looked at the previous sign code, and now I hope, if you look
The setback
Well,
above
that's-
6. What about,
3 feet, there's no setback. If it's greater than 3 feet, it's a 5-foot setback, not 10.
okay, all right.
So let's go ahead, with no more questions, I'm gonna end this public hearing, it's now closed at 7:30. And now now we can discuss amongst council and ask questions.
So pole sign is different than, what's a ground sign less than 5 foot, or less than 3 feet and greater than 3 feet.
That was part of one of the struggles that we had under the previous sign code, is trying to define what a pole sign was versus ground sign. The definitions now basically says that I don't want to define it, I can tell you. So we have the definition of a pole sign, and pole signs are the highest signs that we have, and they're only allowed in certain zone districts. Okay. So a pole sign is a sign wholly supported by a sign structure in the ground with a clearance of at least 8 feet above the ground. That's a pole sign. A ground sign has a landscape base and it's lower. So a ground sign is a sign that has an architectural base, not a pole. And if you have the type of sign with an architectural base, a ground sign, it can be up, you can still go up 50 feet. The only difference is that I think it was questionable about what the setback was for a pole sign. So a pole sign, she's right, a pole sign.
So like the stone sign in front of Come and Go, that
If they wanted to reface their sign, would they be exposed to this ordinance?
No. If you can do, if you look, there's some language in here in regard to non-conforming signs, and I haven't really changed out much either. I was looking at more than that. Let's see. Give me a second and I'll find it. There's some language in here about non-conforming signs. It says that you can maintain them, you can change the copy, but you can't replace it. So if you actually pull, there is existing non-conforming signs. So this says that you can maintain a non-conforming site if it's the sign can't make it more non-conforming. So you can keep it as it is, you can maintain it. But
So
you
if you
can't.
tear it down and want to more discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion?
is Springs Municipal Code concerning signs by reference.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second's on the table. All right, council, we've got discussion time again. Any more?
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Bob?
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Michael Hellman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Susie Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Siegel.
Yes.
Good work, Alan.
Hang on for next week.
Okay, we did our ordinance second reading on the sign code. We're gonna jump back up. We have a resolution, number 11. We'll have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 11, series 2018, a resolution adopting an amendment to the Idaho Springs Police Department Policy Manual concerning body-worn cameras and reserve officers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
So what's the background on this, Chief?
When we implemented the body-worn cameras 2.5 years ago, we acted under the provisions of our policy manual, which gives me the authority to implement a special order.
Okay.
So now we beefed up the policy on several factors. First and foremost is when we're in a private residence, we will have our cameras on. Unless the folks say, hey, you know, I'd rather just not be recorded, things of that nature. It kind of stipulates, you know, makes it clear when we're having our lunch break or a, you know, consensual conversation on the street, like when I do my walks in the morning.
Right.
I don't have to have my body camera on.
Right.
But also identifies incidents where we start with a casual conversation, but it turns confrontational, that the officer can or should put the body camera on.
Yeah.
So what it does is it solidifies it away from a special order to a policy.
So this is kind of like, you know, you've been doing this program for what, like a year and a half? The body
That
cameras?
was the first thing I did when I got here.
Right,
The body
so
cameras within
this is
that
kind of like, you know, taking some observations from in the field and kind of applying it,
Yes,
making a new rule.
and best practices.
Okay, cool.
So
Are
is this
you,
new
do you
code?
feel like it's a successful program so far? As
I
far
know
as
it is. We've had a number of false allegations made against police officers that without it essentially would have been the offender's word against the officer. We've gotten a lot of evidential information off of it. We've used it for training when officers, you know, make a mistake. The best example I give you is whenever there's a use of force, I, you know, automatically review the case. I mean, logically,
Yeah.
I can't review every
Right.
hour of footage. Although I did watch 5 hours of footage today, and it was in reference to a false allegation against an officer. So it was worth it there, but you know, take felony car stops, for example, or use of force where the officer may have not used the best tactic that we were trained, so we use it as a learning tool. So it's also a performance tool because when the officers do make mistakes, you know, they're held accountable.
yeah.
So
It's kinda like football players that watch their own games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It needs to be played.
So is this mandatory?
Yes, now the thing is it's, you know, I give everybody a couple of breaks. You know, the cameras are not fail-safe. I've done it myself where, you know, I hit the activation button, but the master switch isn't on. Or we move things around and the switch is inadvertently turned off. If it's a critical incident, such as like, let's say we're serving a high-risk warrant and it's not on, or nobody has them on, or they missed the button, is that somebody else has their camera on.
Right.
I do require the officers to write a memorandum each time they go into a critical incident, and it's not recorded by anybody. So we can establish a pattern, plus it's also negative reinforcement.
And then the aspect of the reserve officers, can you talk about that for a second?
Yes, we have had a reserve officer program on our books for a while, but, you know, we're so small, we don't have the funds to support a reserve force, per se. We've had one reservist that, you know, let's say we have a special event on the 4th of July, it's like I'm busy, can't come before the July. So what we've done is we've transferred over to primarily IGA with the Colorado Rangers.
Right.
So the deal is we have, you know, 200 Rangers, but we have a core of 10 Rangers that really like working for us. So at any given event, I can get at least 2 Rangers. Sometimes I have to turn Rangers down. So we're moving away from our own reserve force to adoption of the IGA.
Okay.
But at the same time, we want our own rules.
Right,
So let's say we have a special event and there's a complaint against a ranger, that complaint comes to us first.
Right,
And then we decide whether it's something we need to investigate or it's of the nature we can pass it on to the rangers. But at the same time, we also want to make sure if they get compliments that, you know, we're in a position where we would never fail passing the compliments on.
Right.
Another example is use of force. You know, our rules are, and we brief the rangers every time we have an event, is that if you use force, if you're in an unfortunate situation, you report to me first.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna follow our use of force follow-up procedures.
Instead of the Rangers.
Instead of the Rangers. And the reason is they're volunteers.
Yeah.
They may see their command structure once a month, maybe.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no, not to say there's no quality control, but we wanna make sure that, you know, any use of force in the town is properly chronicled, justified, and if there's any impropriety, it's dealt with.
And
It was required for ours, it wasn't
Okay.
required for the Rangers, now it's required for the Rangers.
Okay.
It is,
Okay.
that was my question.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for the chief? Roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Suzie Stokes. Yes. Bob Boland.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Siegel.
Yes.
All right.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 7, series 2018, an ordinance accepting and recognizing the realignment of a portion of Soda Creek Road.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second on the table, discussion.
What is the difference between these two different land survey plats? I couldn't really tell.
There was no difference. It
Okay.
just got put in there.
Okay, I was like,
I was trying to enlarge it, but to no avail.
you had me going for at least 5 minutes. That was the only question I had.
Any
I
other
just couldn't
questions?
tell the difference.
Everybody knows what this was about?
Yep.
Okay, roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Suzie Stokes. Yes. Bob Boland.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Siegel.
Yes.
All right, let's move to our next ordinance reading. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 9, series 2018, ordinance vacating a portion of Colorado Boulevard adjacent to 1744 Minor Street near the intersection of Riverside.
Do I have a
Drive.
second?
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Suzie Stokes. Yes. Bob Boland.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yep.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Siegel.
Yes.
So we are just blessed tonight to have our finance officer in the room. You're up. You have anything for us?
I didn't really prepare anything. I was sitting here
They help with the water and wastewater.
All right. Thanks, Sandy. Keep up the good work. City Administrator.
Mayor and council, you have my report before you with one request for action.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve $2,500 sponsorship for the annual Feast on the Creek fundraising event benefiting the Greenway in Fort Riley Cooper Park.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Now, a discussion? I'd like to discuss. This is actually buying a table for council to attend.
That's correct. 10.
Okay.
10 tickets.
10 tickets, so all council can attend with our contribution to the event.
What's the date?
Can you send out a thing for us to RSVP to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have the date on that, Andy?
Yes, it is, Sunday, October 7th from 4 to 7:30 under a tent at CRC Park.
So we're gonna trample all that fresh grass?
Nope. We'll put it in the parking lot.
In the parking
lot. Stand on the grass. And they asked if they could set the tent up on the grass. And put a floor in it so nobody would walk on the grass.
And it's not a sit-down dinner this year, it's a different format, it'll be like heavy hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah.
Entertainment, heavy hors d'oeuvres.
Okay, roll call.
Michael Hellman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes. Yes. Bob Boland.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Segel.
Yes.
Okay, and everybody looked at our, August activity report from Safeville.
Yeah.
John and I went down and saw the bonds being, bids being put in for the.
Did it seem
for the bond.
successful?
Yes, we sold them all.
Cool.
That's the goal.
Awesome. Awesome.
It took right up to the very end, but that's often the way it works.
Right.
Cool.
Cool.
They all disappear.
Any trend in interest rates or anything that?
Actually, we got a little bit of a break on the rates
Really?
from what was initially predicted.
Cool.
So that will save us a little bit of money.
Good.
Excellent.
You remember that number, Sandy? What the number was? But that was nice to hear. So.
I keep thinking or feeling or hearing, I think that the trends are going up.
Right.
But they.
So I was a little surprised with that, but
Yeah.
you just never know
That's
from day to
fabulous.
day until you actually.
Well,
have a
extra
sale.
good work there.
Yeah.
That's with our credit rating and our
Yeah,
financial position in the city.
right.
Mayor, I just want to highlight, I know I usually often do this, but particularly this time, highlight a couple of upcoming events in my report. We have the public meeting regarding westbound Peak Shoulder Lane project, which will be starting. They have, CDOT has the construction money for that, and that'll be affecting the city more probably than the eastbound lane because it'll be affecting the shoulder lane coming through the city here, which faces the city. Well, faces both sides, but you know what I mean, faces the downtown and residential areas and all of that. So this is a public meeting, it'll be a presentation, time for meet and greet, to talk with an open house format as well, with all the people involved in that project. So that's at the Elks this Thursday from 5 to 7. And then we've got the chamber mixer coming up, which may be of interest. The ribbon cutting for Colorado Boulevard next Thursday, the 20th at 5, and that'll be followed by here at the bridge, right here at the night day, and of course at the end of this month.
Thanks, Andy.
Sure.
All right, City Clerk,
Mayor and Council, I just have my staff report with no request for action.
anybody have any questions for Diane? All right, thanks, Diane. Chief, you're up.
Mayor and council, I'll refer you to my report. I do have one amendment, which is a request for action. We're in the process of disposing of surplus equipment and vehicles. One of those vehicles, actually two of those vehicles, are 2003 Crown Victorias. One of the vehicles is inoperable and has been. We've been using it for spare parts since before I got here. What I would like to do with your permission is title it to the fire authority. They would like it because they've never had experience extricating victims from crashed, rolled over, or totaled law enforcement vehicles. It's unique in that it has a cage, it has the center consoles with all the operational electronics removed, and it also has additional wires running through the roofing, which is kind of a neat twist for them. So what it does, it gives them a benefit to learn how to save us out of those vehicles as well as anybody that might be riding in the back. and I'll take care of the title being transferred to them.
Perfect, cool. Was this been stored at your place down
Yeah,
there?
you can call it stored.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Any other questions for Chief? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve, the authorization of the Idaho Springs Police Department to transfer one of the 2003 Ford Crown Victorias to the Clear Creek Fire Authority.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion?
Mayor, just wanted to mention, as the chief alluded, we are creating a list of surplus property from all the departments, and that'll be coming to council for review before we actually do put those items out to be surplus. And this particular item, when the chief and I talked, he wanted to expedite it because the fire authority would like to get their training underway with this extrication. And we have, police have this vehicle, it's got nominal value, I'm sure, given the age and the condition, so, it's something that we support, but we just wanted to get it to you sooner than that list is gonna get to you in an upcoming work session.
Thank you for that. All right. Did we roll call on that?
You did not? Michael
Roll call?
Miller?
Yes.
Scott Pennell?
Yes.
Casey Stokes? Yes. Bob Bowman?
Yes.
Mike Buick?
Yes.
John Curtis?
Yes.
Jason Segel?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
And we'll move to Public Works.
Mayor and council, I'll refer to my staff report with no request for action.
All right, any questions for John? None? All right. We'll move on to Dan. Dan's got all the news for us tonight.
News here. Mayor and council, I'll refer you to my staff report. I do not have any requests for action.
All right, anybody have any questions for Dan?
I've been racking my brain, I came up with one for John. Some of the broken curbs downtown marked with yellow paint, I was just wondering if we're looking at repairing some of those, or?
As soon as we get enough quantity that we can get them repaired, nobody wants to go
Mess
down
with
and
the little ones.
repair a couple small curves.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
So we're trying to we've got some actual sidewalk down phase one of Colorado Boulevard that needs to be replaced, and some curbs down that way and Main Street, so we should just about have enough
Get
to
closer.
make a project.
Okay, that makes sense, okay, thanks.
All right, and I'd just like to thank all of our department heads and office staff. Everybody's doing a great job, and it really reflects on our success in the city. So thank you so much, all of you. Then we'll move down, mayor and council. We're gonna kind of wrap this up so we can get back into our session. I've had parking that we created on the east end. Like, I didn't go by, is there in the park? Okay, so we're gonna get out there.
Yeah,
and get
there is a couple down there actually, yeah.
Okay, so
What are you talking about?
well, like in front of Marion's, there's no handicap parking place. We need to designate a couple of parking places in there for handicap.
Your Honor, if I may, by law, the stencils are nice, but there has to be a sign.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah, it'll be stenciled inside, yeah. You know, Starbucks could probably use one, so, I don't think we'll have to street parking, maybe, you know, where people are parking on the street in the parallel, not so much, because I don't think we want stampings down the road. So that, but in parking areas like in front of Starbucks.
Right.
Okay, so we'll get that taken care of. And that's it. Anybody have anything else? Hearing none, it is 7:52 and meeting adjourned. Thank you everybody for coming. It's good to see you.
Those are the signs of the things we were talking about.
So,
Can I just leave those?
Well, I think that would part of the deal with, we think they're on private property.
Mayor, you want to stay where you are?
Just stay where
Yes.
Andrew back up here.
Confuses people, they should think Saturday and Sunday, not, say that's not what it is.
yeah, right, that's good.
How much?